We out here tripping and finesse. It don't make no sense. Out here tripping and finesse. You know it, you know. We out here tripping and finesse. It don't make no sense. Out here tripping and finesse. You know it, you know it. Ha ha. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Junior's World of Soul. I am back with a new video. Y'all know what time it is. It's Friday. It's Flashback Friday. Yo, I am so excited to do this video, and I know y'all probably like bugging because y'all like JR for real. It's Flashback Friday, and you're coming in with Bruno Mars's current hit right now. And I know, but there's a reason why I came in with this song, because when you listen to Finesse, it gives you that feeling of being back in the late 80s, early 90s, that vibe, that New Jack swing-ish vibe. You know what I'm saying? It just makes you feel like you're back in the 80s with, you know what I'm saying? You got the Gumby cut, you know what I'm saying? The girls got, you know, the one side hair, like pepper and all that. Like, yo, it brings you back to that moment, you know what I'm saying? So I came in with that because I'm like, hey, lo, Finesse is gonna get you because it's the hit right now. But you know, I was really inspired because I was watching James Mtume's new interview that he did with Sway in the morning, and he was talking about, you know, how music is. That man was dropping so many gems on that interview, and I definitely recommend y'all to watch it. I'm gonna put it in the more info box. But he was saying in the interview, he was like, you know, you supposed to feel sound, not touch it. And I know that kind of went over y'all head because y'all like, huh? Of course you're supposed to feel the sound. But he mean you supposed to feel the music, feel it. You're not supposed to touch it. And he feels like a lot of artists now are trying to, or producers are trying to touch the music rather than have people feel it. You know what I mean? And I was like, whoa. It kind of bugged me out for a second because I just did a podcast with my big bro on his Apartment 5B podcast, and we was talking about Justice's new album. And I was saying that, you know, the album really didn't hit me like I wanted it to, and I was like, it didn't hit me like his other albums have hit me. And I said on the podcast, I'm an emotional listener when it comes to music. And I said, whoa, I just did a podcast last night talking about how I'm an emotional listener, how I'm supposed to feel something in music. And James Mtume talks about it on Sway. So I said, whoa, this is crazy. Because for me, when I hear a song, I want to feel it. It doesn't matter. It can be a vocal run. It can be a drum. It can be, you know, a chord. It can be a horn. It can be a saxophone. Give me something in the song that's going to make me... You're going to make some type of emotion come out. I don't want to be bored. I don't want to be trying to find something. It should hit me. You know what I'm saying? A word or something supposed to hit me in a record. So I was like, whoa, James Mtume understands. Like, at first I thought I was crazy and I never really said it out loud. And clearly, if y'all watch all my videos, y'all know I'm an emotional listener. Because Mary J. Blige is my favorite artist of all time, and she's an emotional artist. You know what I'm saying? Her artistry is through her emotions. So if you didn't know that I'm an emotional listener, but I just never said it, and it was weird. And then I watched the interview this morning, thanks to my bro Sin for sending me that interview. I was like, yo, like, I know I'm not crazy, because sometimes people can think you're crazy at the way you listen to music, but then when somebody of that stature who's a legend, you know what I'm saying, did that interview, and it made me understand it clearly that yes, it's nothing wrong with me being an emotional listener, because we're supposed to feel it. We're not supposed to try to touch it. And I thought that was dope. And then I said, you know what, I got an idea for a video. I said, what about if I take 2 songs from every decade that gave you that feeling of being in that decade? And I said, I think that would be dope, because then I can give you a little bit flashback of some music, and then it can make you feel like you're in that era, and we can talk, and we can, it might get a little, how can I say it, a little emotional at times, because during these eras, it was a sad time for real. But it's good to have these conversations, and it's just now I'm not crazy, so I knew I had to do this video. So I'm gonna take y'all from the 50s to the 80s, and each of these songs is gonna give you the feeling of being in each of those eras. So I'm ready to get this started. Let's go. I'm so ready. Let's go. So starting with 1950s. 1950s in Black America, you know, racial segregation was at its highest. You know what I'm saying? It was really bad. You know what I'm saying? And it was just like, we had music to try to get us away from that pain that we were dealing with during that time, because the world wasn't right to Black America. It just wasn't. You know what I'm saying? It was like things we couldn't do that everybody else could do, and we couldn't. And then it was so great that we had music that kind of took us away from the pain for a little bit. It was just like, ooh, just get in touch with the music, and we just don't got to deal with the problems that we're dealing with when we go out in this world every day. And you know, we had artists that really represented us. We had artists like Ray Charles, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, Little Richard. But they were the ones that really was just really strictly R&B. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't really getting that mainstream exposure like they should. You know, Ray Charles out of everybody was, but it was like, it was just known on the quote-unquote chitlin circuit. You know what I'm saying? But we had artists starting in the mid-50s, coming into the late 50s, where they started getting more mainstream. You know what I'm saying? Started getting crossover. And we're talking about Sam Cooke and these two artists that I'm going to talk about, that I felt like their songs, two of their songs, really defined the 50s, and it really kind of brings you back to that era. And their group is the Drifters. And I feel like, you know, anytime I hear the Drifters, it takes me back. I just remember hearing the Drifters for the first time because my mom, my musical teacher, who I talk about every freaking video because she taught me kind of everything I know. But the Drifters, when she played those songs, it felt like I was back in the 1950s. And it's like I grew to love this group. You know what I'm saying? It just brings me back to memories of my mom getting the greatest hits, and we're going to Utah and Chicago with my dad because he drove truck, and she played it the whole time. You know what I'm saying? And it just really brought you back to the 50s. You know what I'm saying? But this song right here, every time I hear it, you know what I'm saying? And it like maybe shuffles through on my iTunes, and I'm there. And this is the first song by the Drifters that brings me back to the 50s. So here we go. Hopefully y'all ready to sing too, if you know the words. So here we go. What you gonna do about 9 o'clock? Have you heard the news? Yes, we're gonna rock. 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 Yo, anytime I hear this song, it just brings me back. And like, you cannot tell me you're not feeling like you're back in the 50s. And yo, I can really like see myself in high school, right? And I'm getting out of school and I'm walking back home, and I see, you know, all these groups that's on the corner singing songs like this with the Cadillacs in front of them, and they on there, and everybody walking from the high school and walking up to which group sounds the best, and just things like that. Like, I can just imagine that with me listening to What You're Gonna Do. Like, I always feel that. You know what I'm saying? No, even though the Drifters got stuff like on Broadway and Saturday Night at the Movies and all the other songs, but I feel like this song, What You're Gonna Do, just brings me back, and I can see myself at the dances that they would have, and you know, I'm saying, just everything's just so 50s, and that's why I was just like, yo, this song just brings me back there. You know what I'm saying? I can see just the groups just doing this and everybody just singing. So that's why this song definitely brings me back to the 1950s. And I can, and come on, you can definitely see like everybody just rocking to them, like rocking to them when they come to the school for a concert or something like that. Like, I just get that 50s vibe from this record. So What You're Gonna Do is a song that, you know, gives me that 50s vibe. Now, the next artist is Jackie Wilson. Now, he was one of the artists that in the 50s, late 50s, that was getting that crossover love. You know what I mean? And one thing that I can say about Jackie Wilson, yes, he was crossover, and they, you know, they quote-unquote mainstreamed him. But at the end of the day, he represented us because his voice. He had that gospel voice. You cannot try to mainstream a gospel voice. And one thing about Jackie that I would love when he did in songs like, you know, To Be Loved and That's Why I Love You So, he will always go to the high. You know what I'm saying? He will always hit that high falsetto in a joint to let you know, yeah, I know y'all, the mainstream is loving this, but I'm giving y'all these vocals to let y'all know I'm still a brother. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's dope. But this song right here just gives me that 50s feeling every time I hear it. And it's a classic from him. And it goes a little something like this. True love came to me, yeah. Woo! Love worth living, baby. Love is so forgiving. Think of me. Oh, call me darling just once in a while. That's all I need. That's all I need, and I'll be satisfied. Ooh, God, I love that. I love that song. Like, every time I hear that, I can imagine myself at a jukebox, at an ice cream parlor, and go in and put in however much it was to play a joint, maybe 10 cents or something, and to play this, and you can see the, you know, the brothers come out trying to dance like Jackie Wilson, and everybody just that vibe. I can feel myself in the 50s, like just jamming to this. You know what I'm saying? And you know what it gives you that 50s vibe, and that's why I feel like this and What You're Gonna Do is songs that definitely give me that 50 vibe. And it's crazy because every time I do think about I'll Be Satisfied, because this is some fun fact, it was written by Barry Gordy, and you know, he wrote about 5 hits for Jackie Wilson before he left, because he wasn't getting paid, and he went to Motown and didn't pay people either. But that's either here nor there. But he created Motown, and I feel like I'll Be Satisfied and That's Why I Love You So is pre-Motown. And I think Barry realized with those songs, like, he was like, okay, this is what mainstream like. This is what needs to come out of Motown. It needs to be a sound that, you know, whites can enjoy. You know what I'm saying? And I think these songs were like pre-Motown. You know what I'm saying? Every time I hear it, but Be Satisfied, like I said, I can imagine myself at an ice cream parlor, you know, ready to get some ice cream or whatever, and I put this in, waiting on my friends or something like that, and play that, and, you know, people walk in, and, you know, the brothers try to dance like Jackie Wilson. So, these two songs just give me that 50 vibe, and if it don't, I'm sorry, maybe y'all can put 50 songs that gives you that vibe in the comment section. But those are the ones that give me that vibe. So again, Jackie Wilson, I'll Be Satisfied, and The Drifters, What You Gonna Do is my 250s records. Alrighty, so we done twisted in the 50s. Now it's time to jerk for the 60s. The cool jerk. Oh, I love when my mother taught me how to jerk. That was crazy. But now, in the 50s, I felt when it came, in the 60s I meant. In the 60s, I felt like with R&B music, now it was trying to be acceptable to mainstream. Like, it was time for us to get, accepted, our music to be accepted mainstream. You know what I'm saying? And all this happened thanks to Barry Gordy, what he did with Motown, and thanks to Jim Stewart that had sax. But sax was more soul, but don't get me wrong, Motown was soulful, but it was a little bit more mainstream. Like, it was, whites would enjoy that a lot more than they did with the soul. But Stax still had their hits just as well, but it was just like Motown was just knocking them out. You know what I mean? But, you know, it also, I feel like the 60s were the time where there were more black artists that was actually getting accepted for mainstream. You know what I'm saying? We had so many from Motown. We had so many from Stax. You had so many artists that, because in the 50s, there wasn't a lot of mainstream black artists. So finally, we got to the 60s and really they coming out. Then you also had James Brown is coming through. And you know what I'm saying? You know, Sam Cooke was already popping, but you got James coming in, even though James was popping in the, you know, the 50s, but he started getting that mainstream really love in the 60s, and you had Otis that was getting love, and then all the Motown, and it just was like, now you had a lot of black artists that was getting that mainstream attention. So that's what I feel like. And to be honest with you, you really got to think that's a Berry Gordy, because if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have the Supremes, the Four Tops, the Temptations, the Marvelettes, the Martha Reeve and the Vandellas, you know, Marvin Gaye, hey, Tammy Terrell. So many of these artists were big artists in the 60s. And thanks to Berry Gordy, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, in the 60s, I felt like there was a lot of artists. But I feel like two songs in the 60s really defined the 60s for me. And this first one is crazy because I remember going on a cruise with my best friends. And it was actually for Shelly's birthday. Hey, Shelly. And we went on this cruise for her. And I remember all the songs I knew. I even knew the title of it. But I never really knew who the artist was. I never really knew. I knew the song, but if you asked me who the artist was, I never knew the artist. And it was crazy because we went on the cruise and they had like a game. And you had to name all these 60 songs. And I got to that song and couldn't name who the heck the artist was. So this is basically his biggest hit, and I am talking about from Mr. Arthur Coley. And if you don't know, it goes a little something like this. Oh yeah, oh yeah, 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 oh yeah, oh yeah. Woo! Come on now, come on now. This song is everything. Like, you cannot tell me when you hear this song, you don't feel like you're in the 60s. Like, you feel like mashed potato on them. Like, come on, yo. You don't feel like breaking out into the 60s dance, like straight jerking on them. Like, yo, every time this song comes on, I just get the 60s vibe. And it's just like, and then what I love about this song, that he gives respect to the poppin' people that was in the 60s. He said going to the go-go. He's talking about the Miracles. He talks about Lou Rawls. He talks about Wilson Pickett. He talks about Otis Redding. Otis Redding wrote the song. You know what I'm saying? And then he talks about James Brown. He was like the king of them all. Like, yo, everybody, he was popping in the 60s. You know what I'm saying? But this song just gives me the 60s vibe. Like, everything about it, this song was just perfect. So, if you're going to talk about the 60s, in my opinion, you got to talk about Arthur Conley. I said corny, Lord. Carney song, Sweet Soul Music. This song is everything. I just love this song, and I think it really describes me for real. It's crazy. This and Soul Man really describes me, but I feel like Sweet Soul Music really gives me more of that 60s flavor when I hear it. So, you can also, and another thing, you can also hear the Motown influence, and then with Otis Redding writing on it and having his stamp on it, you know that it has that Stax feeling. So Stax and Motown was it in the 60s. So what more do you need? Boop, there it is. But, you know, that song is just everything. I wish I could listen to that whole song. We can rock out together, but it's neither here nor there. Y'all got a little sample of it, so y'all know what it is. So now, by 1967, 1968, I felt like there was a change in music. And it was a change because our world was changing. You know, during this time, this is 68, the beginning of the Vietnam War. You know what I'm saying? Which they consider one of the worst wars ever. Like, we shouldn't have been in it. You know, it really started to affect our community. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, with the death of Malcolm X and the death of Martin Luther King, this is time when music is really changing because, like I said in the beginning, I felt like, you know, R&B music, you know, we wanted to be accepted by mainstream. And I felt like now it was so many of these artists that had wanted to say something about what was going on in our community. It wasn't like we want to speak about love, because right now our community ain't getting love. You know, everything is not love, peace. You know what I'm saying? So for me, you know, I felt like this was a change. It was a big change. And it was like, I felt like, you know, it was like our communities was like, forget trying to be accepted. We got something to say. Now that y'all accepted us and y'all accepted our music, now we want y'all to hear what's going on in our communities. And I think once that happened, it was like, it was time for a change to happen, and the change did started to happen. And I feel like this song right here, especially after Malcolm and Marvin died, really explained what was going on in our community. And this is the song by James Brown, and it goes a little something like this. Woo! Come on, James. Until you get what we deserve. Yes. Woo! Talk to him. It was you born. Woo! And I feel like that song right there is what we wanted to say. We wanted to say to mainstream. We wanted to let them know that we black and we proud to be black, and it ain't nothing wrong with us being black. You know what I'm saying? And like, you know, I saw that Chuck D said when he heard this song, because before then we called ourselves Negroes, but he said when he heard this record, he was like, it's okay to be black, and I'm happy to be black. You know what I'm saying? And it just was a change in music. You know what I'm saying? And I can see myself back in 68 when this song came out, and you see your brother on the street, and you like, black power, brother, black power, my sister, like, we in this together. You know what I'm saying? And I really, really think this song really defines R&B and the black community during that time. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy because with this record, James Brown started to really become mainstream about 64, 65. He started really getting that mainstream love. And then when he came out with this record, a lot of radio DJs didn't play it. A lot of the commercial audience didn't understand it. You know what I'm saying? And he said, you know, when they did an interview with him, he said this cost him a lot of his really mainstream audience, because he was standing up for his people, but his mainstream audience couldn't accept that. And that's crazy that he just has a statement just saying he's proud to be who he is, but his commercial audience couldn't accept that. That's just crazy. It's just crazy to me. And he said it cost him a lot of money, and it cost him a lot. And a lot of, you know, after that, you know, a lot of, his career really kind of started going down after this record. And it's sad because this song is such a statement. It's so powerful. And you would think it would be like, oh my God, the best thing. It was the best thing for our community, but the mainstream audience just couldn't accept it. And that's just crazy to me. But you see, this song really, really, really defined the 60s decade, in my opinion. I feel like Sweet Soul Music by Arthur Conley really describes what soul music should feel like and what it was in the 60s. And I felt like 68, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, really defined where we were in the 60s. And like I said, it was like, now y'all accepted us. Y'all like our music. Y'all accepted it. Now we want y'all to hear. It's not all about love and all about happiness and all about this. It's a lot of stuff that's going on in our community. We want y'all to hear it. And this is our platform, and we're going to use it. And I feel like this was a beautiful song, but it so sucked that this kind of really took a toll on James Brown's career, but it don't take away his legacy because he's still the Godfather of soul. So those are the two songs. Arthur Conley with Sweet Soul Music and James Brown with Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud defines the 60s R&B music, in my opinion. So now that we have jerked our way out of the 60s. It's time to bump ourselves into the 70s. Now, the 70s, it was about making political statements. That was all that was in our music. It was about explaining the things that we were dealing with when it came to the government. And I feel like the leaders of that were Gamble and Huff with the Philly Soul and Philly International Records. It was like, it was a message in their music. That is a song by the OJs, by the way, because it's a message in the music. But they started, now we want to dance. Now y'all hearing what we want. Now we're going to put it in our song. Yeah, we can party, but there's always a message in this that we want you to hear. And, you know, as far when it comes to Motown, because again, Motown was about trying to be accepted. Now that the times have changed, you have Marvin Gaye and Stevie, who were the leaders of making albums that made political and you know talked about what was going on in our community and selling it to mainstream. You know, with Marvin What's Going On album and Stevie's Inner Visions and Songs in the Key of Life and those type of albums that was very defiant when it came to the 70s because of what it stood for. You know what I mean? And they were definitely, and these albums were definitely talking to our children. They was like, listen, like, you need to understand what's going on in your world right now. I know, you know, everything is going, you know, our communities and what we're dealing with, but you need to know what's going on in your government. Like, I love the song from Stevie that he says, you know, on his first Finale album, where he said, you've done nothing. And he talks about how the president ain't doing nothing and you going through this drama. Like, it just was a great time during the 70s. Actually, my favorite era of music, which is the 70s, because it was more about a political statement. You know what I mean? And, you know, these two songs, in my opinion, like, because during that time, I felt like albums really started really becoming popular. Because back then, in the 60s, it was all about the singles. But now, I feel like the 70s was about the albums. But if you want to say the 70s two songs that define, this one definitely, in my opinion, defined the 70s. And it's by Howard Melvin and the Blue Notes. And it goes a little something like this. The world won't get no better. We have to change it, yeah, just you and me. Woo! Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Now, even though, like I said, there's a message in the song, but when I listen to this, I can see myself with Howard Melvin and the Blue Notes performing this on Soul Train. And I'm jamming, and I'm looking to my left, and I see Don Cornelius just bopping his head with the microphone in his head. But it's like, I could just imagine just waiting for him to say, after they finish performing this song, love, peace, and soul. Like, I can really feel him saying that when I listen to this record. You know what I'm saying? I just think this song was so... Thank God to Gamble and Huff to what they done and what they did with Philly. Like, this was just great because it was all about a message in the music. You know what I'm saying? Like, this song, Wake Up, but you can still groove to it, because I know, you know, them with, you know, when they played this in Studio 54, I could imagine them when it comes to the little breakdown and, you know, Teddy just hollering at you, because you know Teddy love to holler. I could just imagine them just grooving, doing the hustle to this. Like, listen. Dang, I wish I had my mother so I could do the hustle. Like, you can see them just jamming. Woo! Come on. Ah. You know what I'm saying? They jamming to this, but Teddy talking to you. He's saying, stop using dope. The dope pushes. Stop selling it in our communities. Like, stop. But you can still groove to it. You know what I'm saying? And for me, I'm sorry. When you listen to this, you can't tell me you don't want to have your afro on and you picking out your hair and you know what I'm saying? And it like give you the Crooklyn vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just, this song is really, it defines the 70s in my opinion, because this is what the music was speaking about, what was going on in our communities. And I think this was a dope song. And you know what I'm saying? It's just everything. So Wake Up Everybody from Howard Melvin and the Blue Notes is the first 70s song that I feel like really defines the 70s. The second, you know, now we're getting to the end of the 70s. Now, you know, disco is hot right now, but I feel like now people are just ready to party because everything is so serious. Everything is so serious. And you know there's always a change. There's always time for a change. You know, it was, you know, now it's a political statement. You know, we want you to hear it. Then we get into the mid-70s where, you know, we still got those type of songs, but disco is starting to come in. So people are ready to have fun. You know what I'm saying? So now it's more about the production. I feel like in the beginning of the 70s, it was more about what the message in the lyrics. Yeah, the song will make you move, but people wanted to know what was being said. You know what I'm saying? But then when it got to the, you know, the later 70s, disco was really popping. People want to party, and it was more about the production. And thanks to Stevie, with him using his synthesizers, it felt like that was what people was going for. It was a new sound building. You know what I mean? And it was like, it was more about the production like it was in the 60s. And I know for me, when I hear this song and you know, definitely it's on a 70s playlist for me, I just want to bump to it. I want to bump to it and, you know, get my bump on. Even if it's a chair or anything, I'm going to bump to this joint. So here's the classic from Funkadelic. And it goes a little something like this. Ready or not, here we come, getting down on the one which we believe. One nation under a roof, burn down just for the fuck of it. One nation under a roof, nothing can stop us now. Woo! Come on. I'm bumping with an invisible person right now. Woo! Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It just feels so good. It makes you don't even think about the problems that you're dealing with. The music just sounds so good. The production is great. You can hear the synthesizers on there. And just like, it felt like there was a new sound brewing. You know what I'm saying? There's always got to be a change. You know what I'm saying? Music can't just stay the same. It has to be a change. And I felt like this song still gave you disco. It still gave you the essence of the 70s, but it was something new that was brewing in music. And I felt like with this song, with Funkadelic, George Clinton, they was creating something new. You know what I'm saying? So for me, again, like I said, I feel like the 60s, it was more about the production. That's why Booker T and the MGs were great when it came to Stax and Holla Doja Holland and Norman Whitfield. With Motown, it was like their production. It was more about how the production sound. But then in the 70s, the early 70s, going into the mid 70s, it was about the lyrics. The production is okay, you know what I'm saying? It can't be bad, but I felt like people wanted to know what were you saying. You know what I'm saying? Tell me what I need to hear. You know what I'm saying? But then after that, everybody's like, it's getting too serious. I want to have a good time. I want to party. Give me some great production. And I felt like this song right here definitely defined that. So these two songs, One Nation Under the Groove by Funkadelic and Wake Up Everybody by Howard Melvin and the Blue Notes, is two songs that I feel like really defines the 70s. So now we done bumped our way out of the 70s. It's time to whop our way into the 80s. And we're at our last decade, people. We at our last decade. Now, I was inspired to do this video by James Mtume and his interview with Sway. So I felt like, come on now, we get into the 80s, I have to play this joint. And if y'all don't know who James Mtume is, y'all bugging and you tripping. But if you don't, here's who he is. And he's famous for a lot more people because he's produced for a lot of other people like Donny Hathaway and Stephanie Mills and it's so many people he produced for. But this song right here is what a lot of people know him for. So here we go. Come on. Juicy. Juicy. Ah. Come on. Juicy. Woo! Boom, 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 boom. Yes, yes, Biggie used that sample. Absolutely. And I love how he said in that interview, yeah, Puffy got $1 and I get 50 cents. That's how you do a contract. Respect to you, James. Respect, respect, respect. But I had to play that record definitely because I was inspired to do this video from him. And come on, when you feel this record, it feels so 80s. It's so 80s. And thank you, James, for this classic. This classic will never die. I know you rich just off this song alone. So respect to you. But this song is also personal to me because this was my mom and dad's first dance. Their first dance when they got married. My mom and my dad danced to this song. Today, 32 years ago, my mom and dad got married. And, you know, R.I.P. to my dad. And it's just so crazy. And like I said in another video, that we all love Biggie. And this was his first single. And he used their first dance as his first single for his, you know, Ready to Die for Juicy. So that's crazy. But I definitely had to play, you know, James and Mtume, of course, because Mtume, I always say Mtume, because of the legacy he was, and again, I have to thank him for being such an inspiration, because he is, yo, and every time he does an interview, he just drops so many gems, and it's just so amazing. So respect to him, and I had to do that, and happy anniversary to my mom and my pops, and R.I.P. to my dad. So let's get into the two songs so I can get up out of here. The two songs that I feel like define the 80s. Now, anytime this song plays, you know it's just 80s, hands down, and the bottom line. So here's the first joint. I don't got to say too much, and y'all gonna definitely sing along to it. And here we go. I'm too much, never too much, never too much, never too much. Dum, bum, 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 bum. Ah, dum, 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 dum. Boom, boom, boom. Ah, yeah, man. Yeah, man. That song just feels so good. And you can, and like, have y'all seen the video to this? Have y'all seen the video to Never Too Much? This video, definitely, every time I see it on VH1 Soul, but now they call it VH1 Jams now, whatever it is. But, yo, every time I see this video, it definitely takes you back there, where people walking with the first Walkman to ever be made, and they walking to work, women with their broad shoulder pads, you know what I'm saying? Like, the big ones got their shoulders up out the hair. Like, it just gives you that vibe, yo, and it's just so 80s, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just so 80s, and you just feel so good, and that's what it's supposed to be. You're supposed to get that feeling of the time that these songs were made. You're supposed to have that feeling. So, come on, when you hear Luther Vandross, Never Too Much, you know you feel giving that 80s feeling. So, that's that. So, now, in the 80s, hip-hop really started getting more popular. It started really coming in. But also, during this time, another genre was getting, you know, about 85, another genre started coming in. And, you know, it was a new sound. And it was coming from Teddy Riley, coming from New York, and he's a genius. He's a genius, and he deserves so much respect, and I wish we give him more, but it's all good. But he called it New Jack Swing, and so many artists benefited from this era. So many artists. And when I think about the 80s, you know, you definitely think about Keith Sweat because you got to give it to Keith Sweat for having the first really New Jack Swing album. But when I think about the 80s and I think about New Jack, I got to give it to the king of stage, and I am talking about Bobby Brown, that actually just celebrated a birthday 3 days ago. Him and my mom celebrate the same day, so I think they're the same age. I think. I'm not sure. And I ain't telling my mother age, so I ain't gonna do that. But I'm talking about his Don't Be Cruel album. If you're gonna talk about the 80s, you gotta talk about his Don't Be Cruel album. I mean, every song on that album was a hit. He had, what? The first 6 songs on the album were all singles. That's crazy. But every time you listen to that album, it gives you that late 80s, early 90s feeling. But for me, this song reminds me of the 80s so much because it takes me back. It takes me back to when my pops had his 87 Cadillac, and we used to ride around in New York, and I'm like 2 years old sitting in my car seat, and he's playing, you know, the Don't Be Cruel album, and him and my mom loved that album. And that was one album where, you know, it was R&B, but it had such a hip-hop edge because Bobby was so street. So this was one album that my mom and dad could agree on to play. So, but even though this whole album was mainly produced by Babyface and L.A. Reid, but my prerogative was from Teddy Riley. But I feel like this song, to me, gives me such an 80s feeling and really defines the late 80s going into the 90s. And it was actually, was this the last song? No, it wasn't. So I was about to lie and say it was the last song, but no, it wasn't. But this is the song that I feel like really defines the 80s. And goes a little something like this. Every little step I take, you will be there. Every little step I make, we'll be together. Every little step I take, you will be there. Every little step I make, we'll be together. Oh man. You think about the song, you want to do the dance in the video, you just think about what you were doing in the late 80s. You know what I'm saying? And it just brings me back. It brings me back to me and my pops wearing the same white sweatsuit all the time. It just brings me back to being in his 87 Cadillac. Like, it just brings back so many memories. And that's why I feel like every little step, and I feel like never too much. When you hear those songs, it takes you back to the 80s. You know what I'm saying? You can get your WAP on. You can even get your Running Man on. That's how dope these records are. You know what I'm saying? So those are the 2 records that I feel like define the 80s. And we are at the end, y'all. And as y'all can see, I took y'all through a 30-year musical journey. I played songs. Every one of these songs, you felt like you were in that element. You felt like you was in that decade. You try to think back, what was I doing during this time? You know what I'm saying? I wasn't even old enough in the 50s, the 60s, or the 70s, but I really felt like when I hear those songs, it takes me back to that time. And that's what music is supposed to do. Like I said in the beginning, I'm an emotional listener. You have to connect me, bring me, you know, make me feel something. And like I said, it can be a chord, it can be a horn, it can be a vocal run, it can be something. Make me feel something in the music. And I think now, like James and Mtume was explaining in the interview, we're getting away from that. We're getting away from that. Everybody just, it's not about the music. It's about just making a product. So the soul is not in it anymore. It's not there anymore. You know what I'm saying? And then we get mad when, you know, these labels, you know, would get a white artist and they do that, and it's like, but wait a minute, this is a culture vulture and all this kind of stuff, but we have producers that's not giving the same stuff to a black artist. They know I'll give it to a white artist, it will sell more, and that's sad. That is so sad. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, you know, I'm so glad. That's why I'm going to put this interview with James and Mtume in the more info box, because I really want y'all to check it. It's it's definitely better than the Breakfast Club interview. The Breakfast Club interview, you could tell all three of them, excluding Charlemagne, knew about James and Mtume. Clearly, DJ Envy did not know. Clearly, Angela Yee did not know. The only thing they knew was Juicy. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Where an OG like this is the only song you guys know? Stop. Like, for real. But, yo, it just... And his interview just let me know that, JR, it's okay. You can be an emotional listener. That's what you're supposed to be. You're supposed to feel the music. Anytime you feel it, it's supposed to make you feel some type of way. And that means that the record is good and it's touching your heart. Because, again, when it comes from the heart, it reaches the heart. So, you know, that was so fun. Like I said, I be wishing that I can play the whole song and groove with y'all. You know what I'm saying? But I kept y'all long enough. It's like 45 minutes. And I'm going to get out of here with a song. When you hear from the 90s, you know this is a 90s. You know it takes you back to the 90s. It takes me back to the 90s. And when you hear this song, it's on every 90s playlist. It has to be. And it just has that 90s feeling. And we're going to get out of here with this. Here we go. Hopefully y'all enjoy. Hopefully y'all really enjoyed, because this was really fun. So here we go. This is how we do it. You're all my neighbors, you got much flavor. This is how we do it. Let's sit the track in the old school band. This is how we do it. I'm out, y'all. Peace.